My name is Ondine Harrow, and Charleston in the spring feels like it was painted just for brides. Soft pink azaleas spilling over iron gates, warm breezes drifting off the harbour, horse-drawn carriages rolling past pastel mansions. It's the kind of place where love is supposed to bloom effortlessly. And for a while it did. I used to walk down East Bay Street with my fiancé Rowan, imagining the day I'd wear the Harrow family heirloom ring, a delicate vintage piece with an oval diamond framed in filigree gold, passed down for 4 generations. My grandmother gave it to me before she passed, pressing it gently into my palm as if handing me a piece of her heartbeat. "Take care of it, darling," she whispered. "It belonged to every woman in our lineage. Now it chooses you." I treasured that ring more than anything I owned, not because of its value, but because it felt like a thread connecting me to women I never met but always admired. Which is why the betrayal hit me the way a chandelier might fall, slow at first, then catastrophic, the day I noticed something was wrong. It happened on a Thursday morning 2 weeks before my final dress fitting. I was sitting at my vanity, sunlight hitting the ring just right, when something glinted wrong. The diamond looked slightly duller. The gold a little too yellow. The weight on my finger felt off. I frowned, holding it up closer. "No, that's impossible." I slipped it off and examined the underside. The tiny engraving, my grandmother's initials, once it was gone. My chest tightened. My hands began to shake. No, this can't be happening. I checked the prongs, the detailing, everything. It looked similar, but not identical. This wasn't my ring. My heart pounded against my ribs so hard it hurt. I felt heat rush into my face, followed by an overwhelming wave of nausea. Someone had replaced it, the only person who had access. The realization was instant. My sister Maribel. She'd been over the night before, supposedly to help me assemble wedding favours. She'd offered to clean my jewellery while I cooked us dinner. "You're so stressed, Oni. Let me take care of something for once." Her voice now echoed in my memory with sharp edges. Maribel had always been complicated. A mix of jealousy and charm wrapped into one unpredictable package. Growing up, she borrowed my clothes without asking, used my makeup without apology, and once took my car for a quick errand, only to return it 3 days later smelling like tequila and regret. But this, stealing our grandmother's heirloom ring? It felt unthinkable, yet painfully plausible. Confrontation. I drove to her apartment, barely remembering how I got there. My hands were trembling as I pounded on her door. Maribel opened it with a lazy smile. "Wow, Oni, you look. Are you okay? You're pale." "Where is it?" My voice cracked. She blinked. "Where is what?" "My ring, the real one." Her expression tightened, just for a second. A tiny flicker I almost missed. Then she crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Ondine, if you lost it, just say that. You're under a lot of stress. People misplace things." "Misplace? Misplace?" "It has my grandmother's initials engraved inside it. The one on my finger right now doesn't. This is a cheap replica." Maribel scoffed. "Replica? Seriously? Maybe you're imagining things. Diamonds look different in different light." She tried to shut the door. I jammed my hand against it. "Maribel, I swear!" Her eyes flashed. "Back off! I didn't touch your stupid ring." The word stupid stung. She knew exactly what she was doing. The crack inside me. When I walked back to my car, my legs felt numb. My hands were ice cold even though the sun was beating down on me. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at my shaking fingers. How could she do this? How could my own sister take something so sacred? A heaviness pressed against my chest. Anger, grief, disbelief, all folding into each other like a tidal wave. Grandma trusted me. I failed her. Tears blurred my vision until everything melted into watercolour shapes. I felt humiliated, violated and stupid for ever believing Maribel could change. But beneath the heartbreak, something else began to stir. A simmering heat. A slow, rising flame. Not fury, clarity. If she thought she could gaslight me into doubting my own memories, she didn't know me as well as she believed. I whispered to myself, "You will not get away with this." The first clue, back home, I forced myself to calm down. I studied the fake ring again, and something caught my attention. A minuscule scratch on the side. It looked like the kind of mark made when a jeweller adjusts resizing. But my real ring had never been resized, which meant whoever made this replica had done it recently. My pulse quickened. A jeweller! There had to be a paper trail. I grabbed my laptop, breathing through the panic, and began searching for local jewellers that offered duplicate design services. It felt hopeless at first, until I found one listing with a familiar Google review. "Maribel is the sweetest customer, so excited to help her with this special piece." My blood turned to lightning. This was it. This was the confirmation I needed. The emotional unravelling. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying everything. Grandma's voice, Maribel's smirk, the cold imitation ring staring back at me. The betrayal felt physical, like something had split open inside my chest. I kept thinking, why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't the truth enough for her? But slowly, painfully, the next thought formed, this isn't about me. It never was. Still, knowing that didn't make the grief any easier. It felt like losing my grandmother all over again. I curled into myself, clutching the fake ring, hating that it felt wrong on my skin. But I also felt something new emerging. Resolve sharper than any diamond. Maribel wanted to humiliate me, but she didn't know I was capable of playing her game. And winning. Cliffhanger ending. The next morning I picked up my phone and dialed the jeweller who had left the review. "Hi," I said, steadying my voice. "I'd like to schedule an appraisal appointment. Something tells me you've seen my ring before." There was a pause, a long telling pause. Then the jeweller replied, "Oh, you must be Ondine." My heart slammed into my ribs. How did he already know my name? The jeweller's voice lingered in my ear long after he said my name. "No, you must be Ondine." There was no reason he should have known who I was. None. Unless Maribel had used my name when she brought in the ring. Or, worse, unless he already suspected she wasn't the rightful owner. My throat tightened. Did my sister bring something in? A ring. Another pause. And silence always tells the truth before words do. "I think it's best if you come in," he finally said. "I shouldn't discuss this over the phone." My pulse quickened. Someone only says that when there's something they don't want recorded. Driving to the jeweller. His shop was in the historic district, tucked between a bakery and an antique bookstore. The front windows glittered with polished silver and soft gold pieces that caught the morning sun. Under normal circumstances, I might have admired the artistry. Not today. As I stepped inside, a bell chimed overhead. The jeweller, an older man with silver hair and gentle eyes, looked up immediately. "You must be Ondine Harrow," he said softly. Hearing my full name made my stomach twist. "Yes, I called earlier." He gestured toward a small consultation desk in the corner. "Let's sit. I think you deserve to know everything. The truth begins to unravel." He folded his hands, studying me carefully. "A young woman came in about 2 weeks ago with a ring exactly like yours. Same filigree, same setting. She said she wanted an identical copy made." My heart dropped. Did she say why?" "She claimed she was planning a surprise. Something sentimental." He hesitated. "But she seemed nervous, kept checking the door, kept asking when it would be ready." That sounded exactly like Maribel. He continued, "I examined the ring she brought in. Beautiful craftsmanship, clearly vintage. But she insisted on duplicating every detail. We made the replica and gave her both rings back." "Both?" I froze. "What do you mean, both?" He blinked. "Well, yes. The original and the replica. She said she wanted to choose the engraving later. Air left my lungs in a single painful exhale. So she had walked out with 2 rings, my grandmother's and the fake one. And she'd only returned one. Shock, anger, disbelief. I gripped the edge of the table, the world pitching sideways. "She stole it," I whispered. "She actually stole it." The jeweller's face softened. "I suspected something was wrong, but it wasn't my place to intervene. I'm very sorry." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "No, thank you. This actually helps more than you know." He nodded. "If you want, I can provide a statement. I keep detailed logs, including timestamps, design sketches, and her signature on the service form." Maribel signed her name. A wild mix of rage and relief shot through me. She hadn't even tried to hide it. But another thought sank in, heavy and nauseating. If she kept both rings for a while, why return the replica instead of the original? Where was my real ring now? The jeweller's warning. As I stood to leave, he placed a hand gently on my arm. "There's one more thing," he said. "When she picked up the rings, she asked me a very odd question." I turned back. "What question?" "She asked if someone could tell the difference between an original vintage piece and a freshly made duplicate. If they weren't an expert." I felt the blood drain from my face. She had planned this, every step, every lie, every manipulation. The betrayal dug deeper, colder now. Not impulsive, not emotional, but intentional. "Thank you," I whispered, barely able to speak. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, the sunlight too bright, the warm air suddenly suffocating. In a turmoil, my hands shook as I walked back to my car. My mind replayed everything. The missing engraving, her dismissive smile, her claim that I lost it. How could she do this? Why? For money, for spite, for attention. Growing up, Maribel always lived in the shadow of comparisons she invented herself, convinced everyone preferred me, my grades, my relationships, my ability to stay steady when she spiraled. But this was a new kind of cruelty. My grandmother's ring wasn't just jewelry. It was history, memory, identity. It held generations of women who survived more than I could imagine. And Maribel treated it like pawn shop merchandise. A tear slid down my cheek, and I didn't bother wiping it away. "You don't get to break me," I whispered. A new lead emerges. When I reached home, I pulled up the jeweller's digital receipt he emailed me. Attached were a scan of the work order, Maribel's signature, the date and time she picked up the rings, a photo taken for the shop's log. I zoomed into the photo. There, on her wrist, was the bracelet she stole from me 3 Christmases ago, the same one she didn't remember borrowing. Of course, but the real shock was in her other hand. Clutched between her fingers was a small velvet pouch, the shop's pouch for returned pieces, and it was full, much fuller than the one she handed back to me, meaning she left the shop with the original ring inside that pouch, meaning she still had it. My breath hitched. At least the ring wasn't lost. Not yet. But finding it and proving she took it would require more than accusations. I needed her to say it, to admit it, to confess, on record. The plan begins to form. As I stared at the evidence, an idea sparked. Small at first, then growing, twisting, sharpening into something undeniable. A fake appraisal appointment. If I told Maribel a jeweller wanted to review the ring, she'd panic. She'd slip. She'd talk too much. She always did. I imagined her sitting across from me, anxious, sweating, trying to piece together her lies. I imagined pressing her with calm questions until her confidence cracked. And I imagined recording every word. My heart pounded, not from fear, but adrenaline. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt something solid beneath me. Control. But then an unexpected twist. As I started drafting a message to her, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're looking for your ring, aren't you?" My stomach twisted. Before I could respond, another message came through. "Meet me at Waterfront Park at 7 p.m. Don't bring anyone." A chill ran down my spine. The jeweller didn't have my number. Rowan didn't know anything yet. Maribel would never text anonymously. She loved drama too much to hide behind a blocked ID. So who was this? My fingers hovered over the phone. I typed, "Who is this?" Message delivered. No response. The clock on my phone read 6:12 p.m. 48 minutes until the meeting. Cliffhanger. Standing in my living room, phone trembling in my hand, One question rose above all the others. If this wasn't Maribel, then who else knew about the ring? By the time I arrived at Waterfront Park, the sun had dipped low enough to cast long golden streaks across the water. Families were heading home, couples strolling hand in hand, and tourists snapping their last photos of the day. But my focus tunneled in on one thing. Who had texted me? The message felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't even know existed. I kept replaying it in my mind as I walked toward the famous pineapple fountain. "You're looking for your ring, aren't you?" "Don't bring anyone." Whoever sent that wasn't guessing. They knew. My steps slowed as I scanned the park. A man in a grey jacket reading a newspaper on a bench. A teenage girl with headphones. A couple posing for photos. None of them seemed interested in me. Still, someone was watching. I felt it. The meeting? At exactly 7 p.m, my phone buzzed again. Straight ahead. I lifted my eyes. A figure stood near the railing overlooking the water. Hood up, hands in pockets. Too still. Too intentional. My heart hammered as I approached. When I got close, the figure spoke without turning around. "You're Ondine Harrow?" Not a question, a statement. "Yes," I said quietly. "Who are you?" The figure finally turned. It was a woman, mid-30s. Sharp eyes, tired expression, dressed simply but neatly. Not threatening, just guarded. "My name's Larissa Caldwell," she said, "and I know about your sister." My stomach dropped. She continued, "I didn't text you to scare you. I texted because you deserve the truth." Larissa's revelation. I crossed my arms, bracing myself. "What truth?" Larissa let out a slow breath, then leaned one elbow on the railing. "I used to work with your sister, not recently, but long enough to see how she operates." My pulse quickened. "You know Maribel?" She gave a sad half-smile. "Unfortunately, and I know she stole your ring." Ice filled my veins. My voice came out shaky. "How? How do you know?" Larissa reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She tried to sell it. The world jerked sideways. "No," I whispered, grabbing the railing to steady myself. "She wouldn't. She knows what it means to me. She knows what it meant to Grandma." Larissa shook her head. "She doesn't care about your grandmother. She cares about attention, about money, about feeling powerful." Tears stung my eyes. I clenched my jaw to hold them in. "She showed me the ring," Larissa continued. "Said it was just a test to see how much she could get for it. She even bragged about switching it without being caught." A cold, hollow ache carved itself into my chest. Maribel hadn't just betrayed me, she'd laughed about it. "The envelope?" I stared at the small envelope in Larissa's hand. "What's in there?" "Proof," she said simply. "I figured you'd need it." She handed it to me. Inside were several printed screenshots. Messages between Maribel and an unknown buyer discussing the ring, what she claimed it was worth, how she planned to get rid of the sentimental engraving problem. And worst of all, a photo of my grandmother's ring on a table I recognized. Maribel's apartment table. My breath hitched. A sickening mixture of fury and heartbreak washed over me. "She had the engraving removed." Larissa nodded. "She told me she did. Said she didn't want anyone connecting it back to her saintly little sister." Those were her words. Saintly little sister, the phrase tasted like poison. I closed my eyes, fighting the rise of anger so intense it blurred my vision. Why Larissa came forward. I swallowed hard. "Why are you helping me?" She hesitated. "Because I let her do something similar to someone else once. Not with a ring, but with a loan she never paid back." I stayed quiet, and I've regretted it for years. She looked at me with remorse etched deep into her face. When I heard she was talking about selling another item, something valuable, something family-related, I knew it had to be you. She mentioned your wedding, your name, your fiancé, Rowan. A chill cut through me. "She talked about Rowan?" I asked. Larissa nodded. "She said you had everything handed to you. That she deserved your life more than you did." My throat tightened. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't competition. This was obsession layered with resentment. I suddenly saw pieces of Maribel I had ignored for years. Her sharp comments, her fixation on my milestones, the way she sabotaged small things but disguised them as jokes. I had mistaken toxicity for chaos, but now I understood. Maribel wanted to hurt me. The next clue. Larissa leaned closer. She didn't manage to sell the ring. The buyer backed out when she couldn't provide a certificate of authenticity. A flicker of hope sparked. So she still has it. Larissa's expression darkened. Maybe, but she's been meeting with someone else who might buy it. A man named Dane Whitlock. The name meant nothing to me. Who is he? A private collector, she said. No morals, no questions asked. If she sells it to him, you'll never see it again. My stomach dropped. Larissa placed a hand on my shoulder. I don't know when the meeting is, but I heard her say she wanted to finalise it before the wedding. So you're running out of time. The words hit like thunder. I had days. A new fear rises, but something else about Larissa's story unsettled me. How did she remove the engraving? I asked slowly. The jeweller who made the replica never touched the original again. Larissa bit her lip. She didn't take it to a jeweller. My pulse spiked. Then where? She took it to someone who fixes things under the table, someone who doesn't log their work. There was only one type of person who did that, a pawnshop metalworker, a man who altered stolen jewellery for cash. And if Maribel had gone to someone like that, she was willing to destroy the ring's history entirely. My knees weakened. Larissa's final warning. Larissa touched my arm gently. Ondine, your sister isn't just reckless. She's dangerous when she feels cornered. Be careful. Her eyes flicked around the park, scanning the shadows. She's already suspicious of people watching her. If she figures out you're onto her, she'll disappear with the ring. I exhaled shakily. I'm not afraid of her. Larissa gave a sad smile. You should be. Unexpected interruption. Just then my phone buzzed again. A new text from Maribel. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Why are you at Waterfront Park? My blood ran cold. She knew. She was watching me. Slowly, I lifted my head and scanned the park again. Every bench, every tree, every passing face. And then I saw her, Maribel, standing across the plaza. Expression unreadable, eyes locked on me. Cliffhanger. And she wasn't alone. A tall man stood beside her, one I had never seen before. He was holding a small velvet pouch. My grandmother's pouch,